Afternoon, and welcome to Capital Regional Transportation Planning Agency meeting for September 16th.
Middle of September already.
Already. All right, we'll start with our roll call.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Matlow.
Here.
Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner Messersmith. Yeah,
She's here. I think she went to get coffee.
Okay. And we should have a quorum present.
Okay, thank you. Any agenda modifications, Mr.
Ma'am, not at this.
All right, we'll move to public comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Do we have any speakers? We'll move to our consent agenda.
Move consent, Madam Chair.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we would move forward and accept the consent agenda. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Next. The next items that we'll deal with are roll call vote agenda items. So we will proceed with our fiscal year 2026 through 2030 Transportation Improvement Program amendment.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to present the Transportation Improvement Program amendment. This is for an additional $300,000 for the Veterans Memorial Drive Bridge over Still Creek. These are federal funds that are actually from a line item for this construction, and we're requesting that a roll call vote to approve this. And as a note, there was also previously, there was federal funding put on this for the design of this bridge. So it's been a partnership between FDOT and Leon County to get this project finished. Any questions?
Any questions? That in? Okay. All right, we're ready for a roll call vote on the recommended.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Oh, hold on, let us get a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. I'm moving too quickly. Okay, because it's cold. Okay, we have a motion that's been properly moved and seconded. We'll now go to our roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
Commissioner Matlow.
Yes.
Commissioner Minor.
Yes.
Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner O'Keefe.
Yes.
Commissioner Messersmith.
Yes.
And Commissioner Riley Goldwire.
Yes.
Okay,
Unanimously passes.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go to item number 8. 8A, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
First, we have our financial statements. I always like to say every year, everything's accounted for, everything's where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to pass it off to Suzanne. She oversaw the audit for us this year along with our audit firm. So Suzanne, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, again, this is our 6th year working with James Moore and Company on our audits. There is one point I'd like to call out before I bring up Christy Battles from James Moore and Company to discuss the annual financial statements further. This year, we had an expense that was paid in June in full of almost $75,000. Or excuse me, July. Because of the difference between the federal and the state fiscal years, there was actually that expense, there was 3/4 of that expense fell out of that fiscal year 2024. So therefore, there needed to be an adjustment to the revenues to reflect that and have that moved and reflect in the next fiscal year. That was not done, and for that reason, we did have a finding. However, it's still, we are still a low risk, and this department, the finance department, has been very cognizant to communicate to everybody that it's very important that we identify these prepayment expenses at the time of closeout. So we do not anticipate this will occur again. And with that, I'm going to introduce Christy Battles from James Moore and Company. She was the manager of our audit this year, and we're very glad to have her. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne. I am, like she said, Christy Battles with James Moore, and I, like she said, is the manager overseeing the audit, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you today. There are a few things that I would like to highlight from the audit. Suzanne kind of gave a good preface to it, and one of the only issues that we had came from this kind of unusual timing of this payment. But as far as the audit as a whole, the entire process, working with the team, the finance team, the CRTPA team, we had a great experience. We always do. We always have full cooperation of the team and, never run into any issues there. So we appreciate the opportunity again to do the audit for you all, and we appreciate the part of being a part of the team. As you all probably know, the audit, you may or may not know, but the audit is due around the June 30th. That's like the hard deadline of when it has to be issued. We were a little closer to that deadline this year than we like to be, but we've kind of worked through that as a team and, making sure that we don't run into that again next year, kind of backing up the start of the audit a little bit to accommodate some different timing needs and stuff for the finance department. So we have a good plan set there for next year. One of the first things that I would like to cover is the report to you all as the board. So this letter that you should have a copy of, but if not, we can get you a copy of it, the letter to the board. This letter essentially outlines, just like every year, it outlines the responsibilities that we have as the auditing firm, and then the board's responsibilities, and really goes over the things that we're required to communicate to you all. So that's the significant risks of the audit. You'll notice in there we get a lot of questions on the significant risks, and I'll just throw this out there for when you do, have it in front of you to look at. The significant risks are not specific to CRTPA. They're very much across the board for governmental entities. When we're doing audits, we are required to identify certain things as significant risks. So revenue recognition being one of them, management override of controls being another. So when you see that, I don't want you to think that that's something that was specific to CRTPA, that something arose for these risks to come to our attention or anything. Very much across the board. One of the other things that we note in this letter are significant estimates that we have to rely on as the auditing firm. We want to make sure that you all know that these estimates are not something that we go in and we have full assurance over, because we cannot offer full assurance over them because they are done by external actuaries and such. So kind of a lot of words there, but the net pension liability and the OPEB liability, when you see that, that's all that is just saying we rely on external parties for those numbers. The next section, the corrected, significant, and uncorrected audit adjustments. We didn't have any uncorrected audit adjustments, so anything that was significant that needed to be adjusted was adjusted. As Suzanne said, the only significant one was the prepaid related to expenses that crossed years. Significant difficulties performing the audit. There were no significant difficulties or disagreements with management. And then as we go through the audit reports, you'll see in the financial statement packet, you'll see some of our reports outline lots and lots of things that we are required to communicate as part of our opinion. But in a nutshell, we offered an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give. So that is A++, as it has been in past years. So just want to highlight that. The report on internal control and compliance, the only deficiency that we had was the prepaid, the expense item. And it's really something that we have to write as a I guess, recommendation when we do have a material adjustment like that, but it's not something that is of concern because, like I said, we've already we've gotten the way to make sure that doesn't happen again. We also have a report on compliance for the major federal program, and so we did not have any findings in the single audit, which is specifically for testing compliance. So that, again, A++. We always have to include an examination report where we test compliance with other regulations, so it may be a little bit different. You can kind of go through the reports and see, but there were no findings, anything like that, no instances of noncompliance. A couple of financial highlights that I'll go over just briefly, and then if anybody has any questions on anything specific, happy to address those. But just overall, grant revenues this year, 1.6 million essentially, and total fund balance of 200,000 essentially. So when you look at the different statements, you'll realize that the statements look a little different based on whether you're looking at the governmental activities or the governmental funds. And just realize that the governmental activity statements have long-term assets and liabilities and such that the fund statements do not. So if you see something that you're like, well, this doesn't make sense, definitely let us know, because we're happy to talk through how any of that works. We know it's like a foreign language. So we ended up, in the governmental fund level, what we always like to look at is the governmental funds are, what's currently available for use. So what's currently available to the entity to be able to use in the next year, essentially. The governmental activity statements is much broader, so it goes way past a year. So it's supposed to encompass long-term, like I said, long-term assets and liabilities. So you will notice that in the governmental activities statements, you'll see an unrestricted deficit of 197,000. What I want to just bring up about that is mostly due to the net pension liability that has to be recognized, as this is going to be across the board. Again, it's not specific to CRTPA. This is CRTPA's portion of that liability. So it's a little bit, it may be a little concerning when you first look at it, but if you understand the context of it, it's not something to be concerned with, since it is something that you've met your obligations and everything for. So I just wanted to point that out. If you see that unrestricted deficit, essentially, it's mostly just due to that pension liability. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to address any of those. And if you come up with any questions later as you look through the statements, definitely feel free to reach out to us at any time. Otherwise, thank you so much for having us.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, any questions?
Commissioner O'Keefe, you have a question?
No, thank you for presenting, and I move acceptance of the report.
Okay,
Thank you.
Been properly moved and seconded that we accept the report as presented. We're going to do a roll call. Not on this one? Okay. I thought it was that whole section. All right. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Motion carried.
I just want to say how impressive financial statements are, but most impressive part is that man right there is a CPA, and he has been breaking through all of our financial statements and audits like there's no tomorrow. For him to make that motion without comment means a whole bunch. So I wanted that to be on record, that you guys are doing a great job with the financial statements and audit.
I'll second what Commissioner Maddox said.
Madam Chair, if I could, as always, too, I want to thank Patrick Twyman, who's escaping out the back door there now, in financial services.
That's what Patrick does. He does it, he hit it and quit it.
They're always a huge help, and they actually carried the bulk of the load along with Suzanne when we put these financial statements together. So I always want to make sure that I thank them for their hard work on this as well.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to, we are going to do the 8B, right?
Yes, ma'am.
8B, CRTPA fiscal year 2026 budget.
Get back over to Ms. Lex.
Thank you very much. Advance our slide. Oh, that did not work. There we go. Thank you very much. I want to just first note that originally we had about $2.8 million available to us for fiscal year 26. We have been working with FDOT as they're developing the work program for next year, And we requested that they move $1 million from current year to next year because there was no available, we had not had any budgeted funds for SU for next year. And we had more than enough money in current year. So therefore, I have a revised statement to you in terms of what our budget availability is. And as you see, we've reduced it to 1.8 million, which is still a fair amount of money. But we feel that, again, that the way it's set up, that will be good for fiscal years 27 and 28 in terms of availability of SU urban funds. I want to note, this year we saw some decreases, which was unusual, starting with, or nominal increases, I may say. In the personnel costs, we're less than a 1% increase in cost. That's in part due to a lower raise, and that the pension cost went down significantly by almost 20%. In our operating expenditures, we are at a 5% increase. And again, the most of the amounts budgeted remain constant, with the exception of we do have an increase in our accounting audit services. We had a new contract this year. We had put a placeholder amount in there originally, and this actually reflects the budget, plus a $5,000 contingency should it be necessary. And lastly, we added $1,000 more to our food budget, just recognizing again that the cost of everything is going up, but again, to continue to provide food to our committees, one committee at lunch about 5 times a year, and then our annual retreat. So that's the entire budget there. And then in the personnel or staff services category, there's actually a decrease across the board with the exception of IT services. And that was up by 40%. So, but overall, it's still a decrease of 5% from previous year. So the total budget increase is less than 3% this year. We're very pleased that our funds have remained constant and that our budget's been fairly stable as well. Regarding our revenues, the remainder, after we take our operating funds of 1.1 million out, we have available $660,000 in current year for project-related activities. We also have funds from fiscal year 25 that are sitting there available to us because we'll be working on projects that were authorized in 25. So that is about a million, or 1.1 million total that we will have available for completing existing work and for new work in fiscal year 26. If there are any questions?
Any questions? It's been properly moved and seconded that we take the recommended action of option 1 to approve the budget. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to our regional mobility plan.
And we are winding this project down after about a year or so. What you'll be presented with today is a couple of options on our cost feasible plan. I'm going to pass it over to Jack first, as he is our project manager on regional mobility.
All right.
That's yours. Thanks, everybody. Great to be here again. Last time we had a very gloom and doom report from the long-range transportation plan, which we don't necessarily like doing, but there are a couple bright stars that we've got to kind of add to the mix here in just a couple seconds. I just wanted to remind, this is the option that we're looking for today's RMP, which would be approval of the draft cost feasible plan scenario 1 right-of-way option. So bright stars, we had a couple changes since the June meeting. We were able to, or we were told by the department that we've had $1.4 million added into the right-of-way for the Crawfordville Road segment, which means that that segment will be fully funded for right-of-way now, and we'll be seeking construction as part of the long-range plan in the future. And then we were also informed that we have a project development environment study on Capitol Circle Northwest between the interstate and North Monroe Street, which is the very first phase that we're looking at for any kind of improvements along the corridor. We don't know what they are because this is the first step. So as that starts to develop, we'll keep you informed as to how that moves along. So those are the two changes that we've got. I've got Franco Saraceno from Kittleson Associates with me today. He's from Tampa. He's a friend of the CRTPA, so don't take too much out on him. And Franco's visually challenged today, so I'll be up here with him in case anybody decides to rush this podium and take it out on him about this long-range plan. So I'll turn it over to him. If you have any questions.
All right.
Thank you and welcome.
So again, Franco Saraceno, good to see you all again. As Jack mentioned, I mistakenly wore my reading glasses today, so it's kind of like I can either look at this, can't look at both. So we'll get through this. And I am absolutely a friend of the CRTPA and a Florida State alum. Go Noles. I guess we're going to start here with project costs, which, as you know, as you've heard over the last several months or longer, they've been going up. These are the costs for the top 5 or 6 priorities on the CRTPA's priority list. So we're really focused on those top priorities because we know we can't fund a whole lot in this plan. So the total cost of those top few priorities is $412 million, a quarter of which is right-of-way costs alone. So the average right-of-way cost per mile is about $10 million for these projects, and the average per mile cost for construction is $30 million per mile. This is reflective of the rising costs we've seen everywhere with inflation and everything else. It is what it is, and it's part of the challenge of building a cost-feasible plan. In terms of revenues, unfortunately, the revenues are moving the opposite direction. So we've got only about $287 million. Now, one important distinction is that $412 million is in 2025 dollars. When we think about this $287 million, it's inflated for each respective time period. So tier 2 is 2031 to 35, and we have 36 to 40 and 41 to 50. So the number in 41 to 50 is about double what it would be today. So $287 million. The first row is district-wide dollars that our FDOT District 3 has to spend on roadways, apportioned by population to the various counties and MPOs within the district. So 122 million of that is theoretically available to this region. The second row is the SU funds that the CRTPA has some control over, and that's 64 million. The next row is state highway system funding. This is the funds that are apportioned to the CRTPA by FDOT and their revenue projections, but is for state highway improvements, and that's 42 million. And then the other roads program, which again is allocated to the CRTPA region by FDOT for off-system roadways, so non-state roadways within the region, and that's 31 million. The final row is transportation alternatives, 26 million. This is what we use for pedestrian and bicycle improvements for the most part. So the total, 287 million. When we compare that, we often compare the forecasts in a long-range plan update to the forecast from 5 years ago, the last time we did an update, just to see the trend and how we're looking and moving over time. That 287 million, unfortunately, is almost $1 billion less in apples to apples in the same sort of inflated dollars. It's about $500 million less than what we thought we had 5 years ago. So you see that final column in the chart, other roads. Again, that's that state highway system and off-system dollars that FDOT allocates to MPOs is the main reason for that difference. And the reason for this is a correction in the way the forecasts were prepared. It's not reflecting any kind of macroeconomic trends or issues out in the world. This is just a difference in how these numbers are generated. So moving on to projects, as you noticed in those time bands, we had tier 2, 3, and 4. Tier 1 is the first 5 years. We normally don't decide what goes into tier 1 because that's already programmed by the time we adopt our plan in the FDOT work program in the CRTPA's TIP. But these are the projects or the project phases that will be in tier 1 in the plan in the first 5 years. We have construction of Capitol Circle Southwest, Spring Hill to Crawfordville, right-of-way for Crawfordville Road, as Jack mentioned, design for Pensacola Street from Capitol Circle to Appleyard, and then the PD&E study on Capitol Circle Northwest, I-10 to Monroe. So these phases are in that first 5 years, and then we look forward to the balance of 20 years in the plan. Before I get to the cost feasible scenarios, though, there are other projects that are sort of on a parallel track that are effectively part of the regional plan moving forward. They include shared use non-motorized projects, SunTrail projects such as Tallahassee to Havana, and others. Includes strategic intermodal system projects, and that's I-10, widening from Thomasville to Centerville, from US 90 to Capitol Circle Northwest, and then out to Gamble Road in Jefferson County. We've got the Moving Florida Forward project, which is the Capitol Circle Southwest that I mentioned that's in the first 5 years. And then, of course, we have the blueprint projects on Milani, Bannerman, Tharp, and the Airport Gateway that we're not making the decisions about allocating dollars to those projects, but they are in the plans, so to speak. All right, so now the 3 scenarios, as Jack mentioned, we developed 3. The first really is a right-of-way scenario that's focused on buying up all the right-of-way, or not all, but as much of the right-of-way as we need for those key priority projects. So what we've got is the right-of-way for the Woodville projects in the second time band of 2031 to 35. You'll notice that 2 of those segments are segmented. In the priorities, they're one segment. The reason we segmented them is just to facilitate getting them in one of those time bands. Because again, by federal rules, we do have to include projects entirely within one time band or another. It's difficult to spread them out if you don't segment them. Crawfordville Road, again, right-of-way. This one is Wakulla Erin to East Ivan, right-of-way in the last time period, 2041 to 2050. That's one of our biggest right-of-way expenses in the plan, so we pushed it out. Orange Avenue, right-of-way in 2031 to 35 and 26 to 40. I'm going to contradict myself. We did spread it out into 2 time periods for the T-Pain to Monroe segment. We had no choice. We really wanted to get that project in there. And then finally, Pensacola Street right-of-way in 2041 to 2050. For the other Crawfordville Road projects, we don't need right-of-way. It's already in hand, so none of those costs are there. So the total cost of those roadway projects is about $159 million. What we also commonly do in these long-range plans is set aside a portion of those funds for other types of improvements. It's typically called boxed funds, and it really gives us leeway in the next 5 years between now and the next plan update to advance projects in those categories without having to amend the plan. So for that, we've set aside $41 million for pedestrian and bicycle improvements, $59 million for system management, and what that means is ITS projects, signals, technology projects on the roadways to make them more efficient, and $28 million for safety. One of the things that I think it's really important to think about that I'm sure you all know generally is that for 1 mile of roadway capacity improvements, you can do 100 miles of system management improvements. So this really is an efficiency thing. We can move traffic a lot more smoothly without widening roads in a lot of cases. So that it's an important, that middle category is important. They're all 3 important, but I just wanted to make that point about systems management. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is, scenarios 2 and 3 are focused on a roadway, completing a roadway. So scenario 2 is Woodville. So for Woodville, we've got right-of-way for 2 of the segments in 2031 to 35, and the third segment in 2036 to 40. We also have construction spread across those 3 time bands. So this is really the Woodville scenario. With the money left over, we also included construction of Wakulla Springs to LL Wallace on Crawfordville Road, and then roughly the same numbers, give or take, for those box funds programs. 41 million for Ped Bike, 54 for systems management, and 28 million for safety improvements. And then the final scenario is the Crawfordville scenario, where we've got right-of-way in sort of spread out, Paul Russell to Gale in 41 to 50, Gale to Bel Air. I'm sorry, I apologize. For Crawfordville Road, it's all construction, and again, spread out across the time periods. But with the money left over, we included some right-of-way for Woodville, from Paul Russell to Gale and Gale to Bel Air, as well as a portion of the right-of-way for Orange Avenue from T-Pain to Monroe Street. Again, the numbers for the box funds is more or less the same, 42, 59, 30 million for the 3 programs. So if we want to compare the scenarios, this slide, it's a bit of a matrix. Got to sort of reorient yourself the way you look at it. But scenarios 1, 2, and 3 are the 3 columns for roadway projects in the table to the left. And then the table at the top to the right is those box funds for the 3 scenarios in 3 separate columns. And then the table to the bottom right is a summary total roadway construction and right-of-way costs, and then box funds amounts in the next column. So as Jack mentioned, the recommendation is to adopt the right-of-way scenario. And that's all I've got. Happy to go back to any one of those slides if you want to dig into any of that information before we move forward.
Commissioner Richardson, you see that Orange Avenue is on there?
I see that.
Okay.
I'm paying close attention.
All right, all right. I didn't see your card up. I want to make sure you saw it. I saw it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's been properly moved that we move staff recommendation and properly moved and seconded. I see Commissioner Matlow and Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at the Orange Avenue scenario and the right-of-way, that looks like the right-of-way will continue till 2040. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, sir. What you have to keep in mind, we're kind of financially constricted in each of those time bands. We have to match the expenses up with the money we have available in that time band. And that's what I pulled up here. Like for right-of-way for Orange Avenue, we're looking at somewhere around $45 million for that. So that was what we felt. And looking at all of these between our top priorities, Woodville, Crawfordville, Orange Avenue, the right-of-way scenario keeps them moving forward. One of the things, we had a lot of discussions at the staff level. If you look at our TIP right now, there's over $300 million in resurfacing over the next 5 years. And, the department, the district, probably 3 or 4 years ago told us, they had been told to put a priority on system maintenance, which is resurfacing. So we hope at some point between now and then, some of that priority will shift back towards adding capacity. So I really think when we look at this is probably a worst-case scenario. They're showing, as Franco's mentioned, $287 million for capacity over the next 25 years, where right now we have $300 million in resurfacing in a 5-year period. This is kind of, I guess I would call it a worst-case scenario, but we feel that the right-of-way option keeps those projects moving along. Most all of our major projects, we've gone through the cheap pieces, the PD&Es, the design. All of these we're bumping up against right-of-way acquisition, which in some cases, like probably with Orange Avenue, is liable to cost more at the end of the day than the construction phase will.
So where we stand today, we're probably 15 to 25 years out from seeing construction.
Based on these numbers, yes, sir.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is what we have to go by.
And Orange Avenue is a Blueprint project. What commitment is Blueprint making to this project?
My understanding on Blueprint and or Megan there, that they're focusing on the non-state roads with their funds. Megan, is that still correct? And focusing more on the local roads and not really, other than some enhancements to Capitol Circle and I think Woodville Highway, more some landscaping and aesthetic enhancements. The bulk of those projects are being funded by DOT.
Okay, so this project won't be funded by Blueprint. We'll be waiting for state funding. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple of questions. Mr. Saraceno.
Yep.
You had mentioned that the right-of-way average is about $10 million a mile and construction is about $30 million a mile. We all know the construction costs are going through the roof. I think the rate of increases have been somewhat, mainly because of materials, but labor is continuing to increase. How about right-of-way? I mean, you see the increases for the right-of-way acquisition increasing higher than the rate of inflation. Can you explain how that might be working?
You know, unfortunately, I'm not a real estate professional, so I can't give you a hard answer to that. What I will say is that that 10 million, it's a case-by-case basis. You know, it depends from roadway to roadway, how much right-of-way needs to be acquired, who owns the right-of-way that needs to be acquired, and so forth. You know, I provided the average. I have somewhere in here the range of the right-of-way cost for those projects is $4 to $25 million per mile. So, again, I think it's reflective of, you know, where you are in the world, how much the right-of-way is going to cost.
Madam Chair, add to that. You know, we are dealing in some instances with Crawfordville Road. That's a rural section. There's not any development out there hardly. Orange Avenue is practically developed, you know, especially from Spring Hill back to the east. You're dealing with a lot more smaller parcels, more property owners. Just the fact that a lot of that property is developed is going to drive up your right-of-way costs exponentially. We'll run into the same thing when we get into the Crawfordville section on Crawfordville Highway. Similar type scenario there.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I mean, there are cost pressures pushing those acquisitions up just because of development and the value of the property increasing for that reason. Right? So because common sense otherwise would tell you that there's no labor involved, there's no construction materials involved with right-of-way acquisition. So you would think that the price of the property wouldn't increase higher than the rate of construction.
Sure.
But you do have development pressuring the cost increase. Okay. Greg and I had talked months ago about on the two bright spots, the Capitol Circle Northwest. Greg and I had talked months ago about Capitol Circle Northwest possibly being added to the CIS. Is that what's the latest on that?
We've had some conversation with the district. We need to now have that conversation with central office. You recall, you know, we went through this exercise about 2 years ago, and we actually initially requested that central office include that as part of the CIS, but they were a bit reluctant. You know, part of the conversation was the Amazon facility that at that time had been put on hold. As we all know, it's been constructed. The Buc-ee's coming in. It's going to put a lot of pressure on that, especially at the interchange and that segment of Capitol Circle. So we've had the conversation with the district. We need to pivot over to the central office now to continue that.
There are a lot of constituents in that part of the county that are concerned about Capitol Circle Northwest, especially with the Buc-ee's being planned for that area. And so, yeah, that would be very, adding that to the CIS would be very consistent in addressing some of those concerns. And then that's it for my questions. I support the motion on the floor. I think this is, I think it's a good step to basically have some tangible acquisitions which kind of sink us into the projects. So when and if money should come in the future, hopefully we'll be a step ahead of some of the other projects around the state because we've done the acquisition for right away. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Just, Madam Chair, if I could follow up. We had our priorities meeting a couple of weeks ago with DOT and had some conversations about what I refer to as the Leon section of Crawfordville Highway. So that is a priority for them. And since the right-of-way is funded, you know, I think there's a good chance we see that come up for construction in the next few years. But again, that is one of the projects, the less expensive projects, I guess I would say, that we have on the book. So we do anticipate seeing some construction funding on that, hopefully within the next 3 to 5, maybe 6 or 7 years. Hopefully sooner than that.
Well, let's just say it's a long, winding road to funding.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Implementation.
May I, sorry, may I add one more point that I meant to say, is that, yes, right now, what we're looking at is $287 million for the next 25 years. That puts Orange Avenue right-of-way in 2036 to 40. But in 5 years, we'll be right here where we are today, adopting an update. And the numbers will most likely look a whole lot different based on what we've accomplished in those 5 years and what's going on in the world. So we have to remember that every long-range plan is really just a 5-year look at the future, and we'll revisit it in 5 years.
Based on the information we have today. And in
Right.
5 years, we'll have different information.
Exactly.
Just saying. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could add too, I've had a lot of conversations with counterparts around the state at our various meetings. Everybody's in the exact same boat that we are. I was talking to my counterpart from Sarasota Manatee. He said he thinks they're going to have one funded project in their long run. So it's not us, it's all of us.
We feel better.
I hope so.
All right. All in favor of the motion that's on the table, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you for the information. We'll now move to our CRTPA federal certification.
Madam Chair, earlier this year, we completed our every 4-year certification, which is, what is that?
Every 4 year? Quad.
Quadrennial, yeah, that's what. So we have Dana Knox from Federal Highway is going to give you a presentation on the results of that certification. So Dana, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dana.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dana Knox. I'm representing the Federal Highway Florida Division. And first, I want to say thank you so much to Suzanne and Greg. They were a pleasure to work with, and we appreciate all of their efforts with the certification. So today I'm presenting a summary of the findings for the 2025 Federal Certification Review for the Tallahassee Transportation Management Area, the TMA, and Transportation Planning for the Tallahassee TMA is conducted by the Capital Regional Planning Agency, CRTPA. If I can get this to work. So this site visit was conducted in February 19th at the Tallahassee City Hall in downtown Tallahassee, and the certification review team included from Federal Highways, Joseph Sullivan, myself, Carrie Shepard, and from FTA Aviance Webb. And the team identified 3 noteworthy practices, no corrective actions, and 2 recommendations. And this TPO is the Transportation Planning Agency for Leon, Wakulla, Gadsden, and Jefferson counties. And this area encompasses 2,388 square miles with an estimated population of nearly 400,000. The team recognized 3 noteworthies in the areas of transit, safety considerations in the planning process, and congestion management process. For the transit area, the Federal Review Team recognizes Star Metro's continued efforts to demonstrate commitment to the community by moving transit forward and applying for and securing competitive grants from the Federal Transit Administration. A recent example being the ongoing South Side Facility Project, which highlights the Star Metro's team's dedication to innovation and excellence in public transportation. And the second area was in safety and considerations. And the Federal Review Team is impressed with the CRTPA's efforts to better understand and use crash data to enhance selection of prioritization of safety projects. Recognizing the limitations of crash reporting, the MPO worked with law enforcement partners to examine individual incidents and identifying corridors or intersections with similar events and were standalone or did not otherwise fit observed trends. In the third area, in congestion management process, the Federal Review Team commends the CRTPA for undertaking and completing a study on the traffic impacts of teleworking. As the region's largest collective workforce is employed by Florida state agencies, the MPO reasoned that traffic congestion might be measurably swayed by whether state employees worked from home often, occasionally, or not at all. And the data showed that robust telework during the pandemic led to a reduction in congestion along key commuter corridors by as much as 20%. This insight provides a valuable foundation for CMP activities and targeted outreach, particularly with state agencies and other large employers. And while the MPO is not currently taking steps to expand on the study or act on recommendations, the data remains useful for the general public, area businesses, and perhaps in the future, the MPO. The team did not identify any corrective actions. There were 2 recommendations in areas of outreach and public participation and congestion management processes. The outreach and public participation, the CRTPA does have a compliant public participation process that substantially addresses regulatory requirements. To better understand the needs and values of its communities, the Federal Review Team recommends the CRTPA consider layering some demographic maps over its priorities, as this activity will help the MPO with targeting the nature and location of its outreach and activities. For congestion management process, the Federal Review Team recommends that freight-related intermodal connectors be accounted for as part of the development of congestion management processes to ensure that improved system-wide linkages via operations and management within the metropolitan planning area. And at the conclusion of the site visit, the Federal Review Team asked the MPO staff if they had any training or technical assistance needs. The CRTPA identified technical assistance requests for LRTP development and consideration of material cost increases, as we've heard already in today's meeting that is an issue. The MPO is interested in seeing examples of best practices from other MPOs and states, and FHWA and FTA will work with the MPO to provide resources in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, Ms. Knox, thank you very much. Congratulations to your CRTPA for the work on this. You need a motion to accept or adopt?
Motion to accept.
Move to accept.
Been properly moved in second to accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, Dana. We'll now move on to the Florida Department of Transportation report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The department has one project to make the CRTPA board aware of. It's the segment of Capitol Circle from Crawfordville to Spring Hill. If you recall, this project was funded through the governor's Moving Florida Forward plan. This is scheduled to be let to construction in December of this year. It currently has a $40 million construction estimate, and we are finalizing right-of-way acquisition at this time. You'll have this segment as well as the northern segment under construction. However, the northernmost segment from Spring Hill to Orange is actually moving very well. Someone who doesn't have to drive it, I can say that. Those of you who are in it all the time maybe don't feel the exact same, but the contractor is moving very swiftly in his efforts on that particular portion of the corridor. With that, that concludes the department's update. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Department of Transportation? Commissioner Matlow?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that update. I wanted to bring up, I think the city and the county had worked with FDOT on the requirement on the decorated sidewalks and crossings. A lot of constituents have expressed concern that those were actually safety enhancements, and the state of those intersections are less safe as a result. I was wondering, and there's been some conversations with FDOT about looking for approved crossings or safety barriers in those intersections. Have we had any conversations at our level, or is there any assistance FDOT would be able to help the city or the county with in doing either the stamped and printed concrete crossings or other types of safety features?
We are working with multiple local governments within our district, District 3. However, this will be is a statewide issue, so that is going to cause us a little bit of a time lag, because any guidance we give, we have to run through our central office in order to make sure there's continuity throughout the state. any interactions you have with the city or the county, we'll follow up just as soon as we get, consistent guidance.
Okay, yeah, that's just top of mind, I think, for all of our governments of what we can do with those intersections. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question regarding, I'm sure you probably heard, perhaps talk to folks about this. We've had a couple of individuals to lose their lives out on Highway 20. And just wondering, has there been any conversation about what can be done out there to try to prevent any more loss of life?
Our district safety office, looks at our crash data pretty consistently across the district. If there's some locations specifically we need to look at more immediately, if the city could just reach out and let us know. Our safety officer would be glad to go out there and take a look, and see if there are any interim improvements that need to be made.
Okay, it's actually in the county. So it's a stretch of Highway 20 out west of Capitol Circle, southwest. Yeah, out in that area. We've had 2 people to lose their lives out there. Don't know the real cause of it, but I would hate to think that nothing would happen before there's potentially another casualty there, so.
Okay, I was just notified that we have received some requests to look at that already, so
Okay.
we're already taking a look at that location
Okay,
where the accidents did occur, and we'll be getting back with appropriate parties if there's
Okay.
any improvements to be made to any of the side facilities. By the next meeting, we'll get you an update.
okay, so you'll report back here with whatever information you have the next time CRTPA meets?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you don't have to wait till the end, though. You can let us know if y'all got an easy button, an easy fix before then. Be great. Thank you. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for bringing up Highway 20. Going back to the street crossings real quickly, though, I know that FDOT is speaking with local governments across the entire state, but I know that Leon County has been having some very productive conversations with FDOT about next steps for street crossings. So too early to talk in any detail about what those are because those discussions are ongoing, but they are being productive, and I think we'll hear something. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'll just add that I'm glad you brought up the Highway 20. I imagine it's Commissioner Caban's office or the county that's reached out and also have had worked with Florida Highway Patrol for increased speeding enforcement out there as well. So I know from the county perspective, we're doing everything we can, and that district commissioner is on it too as well.
Thank you for letting me know, because that's the route I take to Quincy. I make sure I slow down so I don't show up in somebody's report. All right. Next, we'll go to our executive director's report.
Yes, ma'am. Just a couple of things. Kind of following up on the safety conversation. At your November meeting, we'll have a presentation. We're winding down the work on our high injury network update that we did. If you recall, we started this back at the first of the year. We took 10 of the corridors out of our Safe Streets for All Action plan. We finished in 2023 and did some additional work on those 10 corridors. So we'll bring back the results of that for you. And then we have a meeting scheduled for next month, but at this point, I'm probably about 75% sure we're going to cancel it, so we'll probably let you know about that another week or so. I always like to keep it a little open in case something were to come up, but at this point, we're more than likely going to cancel.
Thank you, Greg. Well, you went into the future meeting dates, so, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anything else to come before us as a body that you're aware of?
No, ma'am.
We accomplish our agenda? Any
Items
questions?
from board members, ma'am.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I just want to thank you for a very efficient meeting.
I do my best. All right. All in favor, we're ready to adjourn? All right, our meeting's adjourned.